It's the Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling Podcast with your host, Josh. And with me, as always, the most electrifying man in wrestling podcasting, Josh. How are you, buddy?
What up, Josh? What up, peeps? Hey, what am I doing? You can't see it, but I'm pointing at the Wrestlemania sign. It's Wrestlemania season, and I'm pointing at the sign, and it's going down tomorrow night. WrestleMania.
It's going to be a good time, Josh. I'm really excited. This is really exciting. Like, no matter how much I might bitch or moan about wrestling, WWE, I'm still excited. I'm still there. I'll be there.
And you know what? We're going to talk about our favorite moments here in a bit. We're going to talk about, predictions and all that. But one thing I want to talk about are the forgotten moments of WrestleMania. This is actually something that came in the hot box. Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling at gmail.com. So thank you so much for your submissions. Forgotten moments in WrestleMania history. Josh, what do you got for us?
Yeah, there's always those moments that just seem to slip through the cracks, aren't there? I'm going to start off with one that, I guess I'd say everybody really does know about this one, but it's always overlooked. And that's WrestleMania 3, Macho Man versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Okay, it's always pushed aside, at least by WWE, in favor of Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, which is like I think you and I were talking, it's a 4-minute match. If you want a real meaty match, an incredible match that tells an amazing story, calls back to a lot of things, and has a little bit of that wrestling interference fun, you want to watch this match at WrestleMania 3. I think we've all heard the stories that Macho Man's kind of a bit of a perfectionist, so he plans out each match to a T with his opponent. I can only imagine how many times him and Steamboat practiced this, because it really shows.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's one of those, I don't think it's necessarily forgotten, but you're right. It's not shown as much, and it definitely should get more credit than the Hogan and Andre the Giant match. Although the argument is that Hogan and Andre was a bit more pivotal. Steamboat and Savage, that was definitely a wrestler's match. It was the wrestling fans match, so to speak. And it'll definitely go down as one of the greatest of all time.
Go check it out on the network.
Another match I kind of thought about as far as being forgotten, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was a great match. It wasn't a horrible match. There was Triple H and Ultimate Warrior had a match at WrestleMania, and it was basically a squash match. I mean, technically Triple H did hit the pedigree, so I can't call it an actual squash match. But no, it was one where Ultimate Warrior got hit with a pedigree, got up right away,
bounced up,
did his ropes, and that was about it. So that's definitely one that comes to mind. A couple others. We were talking pre-show about this. So it's actually based on Stone Cold Steve Austin as a special guest referee. 2 forgotten matches that people don't necessarily think about right off the bat. One being WrestleMania 20, when it was Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of fans have kind of said that might be the worst match of all time as far as WrestleMania history. And it was one of those things where you've got 2 big guys and they weren't doing much but except for holds. I think WWE's learned since then, and I've seen better super heavyweight matches. That match was just plain awful. That was one layer right there. The other layer is you had 2 guys that didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
2 guys, Goldberg was on his way out. Brock Lesnar was on his way out. And you had a little bit of unprofessionalism from Stone Cold Steve Austin. At one point during the match, and I don't know 100% what Stone Cold said, but he goes up to Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar yells back, "What the beep do you want from me?" And it was just like, Austin gave him the business. And it kind of actually came full circle. The whole Austin why he left was he didn't want to put Brock Lesnar over. And so he's probably giving him the, as far as the business there, like, hey, this is why I didn't put you over. So that's actually one that comes to mind. The other one is WrestleMania 23, the hair match with Donald Trump and Vince McMahon. It's forgotten in a way as that we kind of just at one point, Donald Trump was sort of a side gag with WWE. And then now, of course, he's our commander-in-chief and president of the United States of America. I mean, when people think of WrestleMania, they don't think about that. But that was a current U.S. president that was part of a WrestleMania main event spectacle match.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. That being said, and I've mentioned this on our podcast before, I'm not the biggest fan of our president. But I will give credit where credit is due. And Donald Trump has a lot to do with the success of WrestleMania. So, nowadays, cities are fighting for WrestleMania. It's basically guaranteed $100 million over a week now.
Yeah.
And back then it was like, WrestleMania, it was a little bit harder to host in the city. It was a one-night deal. And as far as getting an arena to sell to it and really, as far as work the whole business detail out of it, was a bigger deal. Well, Trump offered the Trump Towers in the first couple WrestleManias. Think about it. So WrestleMania 2, part of it took place at the Trump Tower, and then 4 and 5 as well too. And so there, you have to kind of think about that. That's sort of, an interesting way to get a WrestleMania off the ground. Now, I want to throw it out there. WrestleMania would have survived without Donald Trump. There was tons of other things that played into that. You look at the rock and roll connection, of course, Cyndi Lauper, her fame was able to elevate WrestleMania, as well too. And then just the wrestlers themselves and just who they were and the matches they had. It just the interest. I mean, we're still talking about Steamboat and Savage here 30 years later, as far as one of the greatest matches of all time, And so to that end, I think that it's one of those contributing factors, but you got to give credit where credit is due. And that's why all these things sort of came to play and the stars aligned, so to speak. And now we have the spectacle it is, WrestleMania, going on its 35th year. What are there any other forgotten moments you got about WrestleMania, Josh?
Does anybody remember WrestleMania 24, JBL versus Finlay in a Belfast brawl? Yeah. Which really just translated to like a no holds barred kind of match. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there was,
Hornswoggle
almost got injured in that match, right?
Oh my gosh.
What would happen now? It was
at some point they had the trash cans and stuff going on. So we're talking basically a hardcore match. And Hornswoggle interfered. JBL wasn't having any of it, and I'm talking like working stiff. JBL, it looks like, throws this trash can, and I mean, we're talking about WWE trash cans here. I wouldn't even trust them to put trash in them. They're that flimsy. But still, he threw at this little guy. Hornswoggle's not like a big tough guy. Throws it at him. Hornswoggle, if he was selling really well.
Yeah.
It was a crazy match resulting from a crazy storyline. Hornswoggle is Vince McMahon's illegitimate son. No, he's not. It's Finlay's, and now he's going to fight him in this.
Well,
and
originally it was supposed to be Ken Anderson, Ken Kennedy.
Yeah.
So a lot kind of going on with that.
It was a mess, but the match itself was pretty entertaining. It's right at the start of WrestleMania 24. Give it a shot.
Yeah, no, that was a great WrestleMania, Citrus Bowl, WrestleMania 24.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that. That was just, it was a great night. Of course, they had Edge and Undertaker as the main event, Streak versus Streak, and it was a great WrestleMania. But yeah, that was the one that kind of got going. So one other quick one I was thinking about in terms of forgotten moments or matches, so to speak, of WrestleMania. What about the first, Divas / Women's Battle Royal, WrestleMania 25 to crown Miss WrestleMania, which turned out to be Santina, which was Santino Marella. Unofficially, of course, Trump, when he was the general manager of Raw, decided to fire Santina, so we only ever saw Santino from there on out. So, well, for all we know, they were one and the same, but hey, we never saw them together, right?
Well, we'll go with it.
Yeah, Josh, you got any other forgotten moments or matches, so to speak, of WrestleMania?
You betcha. I was thinking WrestleMania 20, Chris Jericho versus Christian, and I don't know if anybody remembers this. This was some kind of scheme that Christian and Jericho had originally cooked up. Basically, a bed bet on Trish Stratus. Essentially, is how I remember it. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, essentially something like that. Kind of a bit of a love triangle there. Yeah.
Right, but then halfway through, Jericho, develops a heart. He realizes he's, tricking Trish Stratus isn't right, so he comes to her aid and this and that. But then, of course, Christian, being the ultra heel he was, oh my gosh, the unbelievable stuff. And so he, of course, ends up fighting Chris Jericho, and the whole thing is just a knockdown, drag out, really entertaining match that again, it was a nice payoff, a nice blow-off to an interesting storyline that maybe was a little goofy, a little raunchy, never be attempted today.
It was a different day. We're talking 15 years ago. So,
right. Oh, yeah.
But, and then, of course, the twist, at the end.
Christian wins, and Trish turns heel on Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
Yeah. Well, I called it.
I called it.
I remember watching that WrestleMania. As far as the people I was watching with, I called them, like, oh, yeah, it's going to happen. And they're like, no, there's no way. And boom, lo and behold, there we go.
You have a sixth sense of wrestling sometimes.
Sometimes.
You're good.
Well, hey, we're going to see Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan. And I call that. So anyway, in regards to actually not WrestleMania, believe it or not, kind of a busy week, right? AEW news, All Elite Wrestling news. Josh, what do you got for us?
It looks like in a recent interview, Chris Jericho claims that he's been banned from WWE programming and apparently edited out of a few segments because Vince is upset because it seems, he's working with AEW.
Well, and this is not the first time this is going to happen. He'll be back.
Yeah.
He'll be in the Hall of Fame someday. He'll even wrestle again in WWE.
For sure.
Everyone comes back. This is just part of the game.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing. Jericho in the interview himself he was speaking real casually about it. He's like, yeah, I guess Vince is upset with me, because he knows he'll come back around eventually,
Well, and it's also Jericho. He's so well established. If he's going to cry about it, he's going to cry his way out of the, he'll cry his way to the bank on it. So
he's a professional.
Yeah, and he gets to be. He doesn't have to call anyone's shots except for his own. But no, speaking of, and I think we actually mentioned this before with Jim Ross. Well, it was interesting because he'd mentioned that, I think initially, maybe it's Meltzer's. I forgot who mentioned it. I heard somewhere where essentially JR, his contract was up, although we had like a couple months yet, but there was no deal on the table with WWE. Some people said he had been fired, but Jim Ross had kind of been tight-lipped about it. And then it was one of those where it's just he was being professional. They were going to let the contract run out. But it sounds like, and I actually goofed around about it on one of our podcasts. I said, hey, AEW, why don't you sign Jim Ross? And, because he's looking for other things to do, and I'm sure he'd be up for doing something like that. And lo and behold, and I think you actually mentioned this. I didn't see it, but I think you'd mentioned it, Josh. You said that there was, what was the deal now? There was...
Yeah, just a few hours ago, I guess the news broke. Apparently, Jim Ross was giving an interview, and he kind of let a few details slip. It looks like AEW has signed a deal with a major cable network, and he stressed that this was a major network, not Pop or some nonsense. So I'm thinking maybe TBS or something might have grabbed him, or TNT possibly. So it's a 2-year deal with some major network, and looking like an October start for Tuesday Night Dynamite is what seems to probably going to be happening.
That's awesome. And that's the thing. It's that definition of major I'm really curious about. So, yeah, if it's Pop TV, wah. But, yeah, if it's something like a TBS or a TNT, here we go. We're looking at the start of a possible another war. Now, I don't want to get too excited because TNA did this where TNA was trying to reinvent the Monday Night War. They did okay for 1 week, and then after that, they were all, like, taped, and it just, they collapsed after that. And so I'd like to see it. I like where they're going with this, and as far as the Tuesday Night Dynamite. And, they're thinking, if WWE's already got the Monday Night Raw deal, why not carve out another night for us? Why not, get people another destination on another night?
At least for now.
Well, and people still think that SmackDown's on Friday night. When I talk to people like, oh, yeah, and I love Friday Night SmackDown. I'm like, no, it hasn't been on Friday nights for quite a while. But
it's going to be back on Friday night.
Yeah, eventually on Fox. Right, That's right. Yeah. But, we'll see. So, again, that definition of major, I am... I'm a bit skeptic. Well, I'm a bit skeptic about it. Just to be honest, I'm a bit skeptic. But no, I want them to succeed because I think when there is competition, it's better for consumers. It's better for the product, and most importantly, it's actually best for the wrestlers because they get frickin' paid.
Yeah,
They get paid even better.
Paid better, and they're talking about health insurance.
And they get used even better, too. Yeah, and this is an opportunity for AEW where they're signing people based on talent, not as far as like pedigree or what you look like necessarily. They are signing people based on talent, which is a very interesting thing because we don't necessarily see that. We see a lot of manufacturing, although I think we can make arguments that across the board in WWE, they've been trying to focus more on just talent itself rather than having a guy that knows 4 or 5 moves, or at least produced that way, I should say.
I think they're seeing the way the wind's blowing, or starting to at least.
Well, and that's where the whole NXT comes up, right? Is NXT is really the direct competitor to the independent circuit, of wrestling. So, but yeah, no, and then so that's awesome stuff. I definitely want to see AEW. I want to see some competition at WWE, like legitimate competition. Nothing against ROH, nothing against TNA. It's not legitimate
until you have major network sponsorship and it's just a weekly show in the vein of something the WWE does. You're never going to get.
Well, it's time slot too.
Time slot as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's time slot. Like if you got great, you're on a major TV network. Great. If it's at 1 a.m., who cares?
Yeah.
I will because I like wrestling. But like we're talking about actual competition.
You need that mass market appeal to reach that point. You can't just depend on the hardcore fans. As hardcore as they are, they can only watch so many hours of content. You need other people,
That's right. Speaking of, one of the other big waves, Josh, you actually shared the video with me. I didn't catch it at first, was John Oliver's show.
Last Week Tonight.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting. I'm a fan of Last Week Tonight. I don't get HBO or any cable, but I do catch it on YouTube. And so they actually put up entire segments of the show on YouTube. So that's how I catch it. Anyway, I stumbled upon this recent episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. And much to my surprise, they decided to aim their sights at our favorite sports entertainment company, WWE. And it's a really hilarious skit. And what I really want to emphasize is that John Oliver is coming at this as a fan. Mm-hmm. He is a fan, and the way he talks, he's a fan. He really knows his wrestling. And in addition to showing some nice clips of like classic highlights from the Attitude Era, he specifically said WWE is better than anything you like.
Yeah.
So let's get that out of the way. That he's coming at this from a fan. He loves WWE, but the main thrust of his argument here was the lack of health care for WWE wrestlers who are treated as independent contractors. That's the other part of it, that they're independent contractors, and they're treated as independent contractors in some ways that benefit WWE, but in other ways that benefit WWE, they're not treated that way. They're unable to work for other companies, for example. Mm-hmm. They have very little control over how they're used, but on paper, they're treated oppositely, I guess you'd say. He points out how many wrestlers are dying so young because they're not getting proper treatment necessarily. There's a clip of Roddy Piper talking about how wrestling has an amazing entrance plan. You know,
Yes.
they get you packaged and you're ready and you're going to, but there's absolutely freaking nothing for an exit plan.
Right.
Like, you're on your own. Like, for anybody who doesn't know, they offer you all kinds of treatment for anything that happens in the ring. But let's say you have a nagging neck injury or something, you're not necessarily going to get any help from WWE. You're more or less on your own on that, which, when you really get down to it, is absolutely fucking absurd. I mean, you know, these men and women who are putting their lives on the line every single fucking day. I'm sorry, I'm swearing, but Jesus, when you really think about it, really take this all in, they're not supporting their employees. It's that simple.
Right.
They're getting screwed over here. So, you know, I sent this video to Josh. I didn't realize that it would make quite as much of an impact. We're getting a lot of wrestlers on Twitter responding, a lot of people talking to Meltzer.
And WWE actually invited him to WrestleMania, which
Yeah.
I don't know. Did he take the invite? I hope he took the invite. It'd be great to see him there.
I think that John Oliver issued some kind of response that said, if you can commit to some sort of concrete changes laid out for, like, the wrestlers getting health care and or some kind of changes to their status, things like that, if you can commit to something like that, he'll go. But otherwise, he's not interested, because I think John knows what WWE is going to do if he gets there. They're just going to butter him up.
That's right. And I think there's actually an opportunity here. So you know, John Oliver paid homage to actually the fans as well, too. I think a lot of people think of wrestling fans as being stupid, as being simple-minded. And he actually mentioned, well, you know, there's a lot of things they've pushed, you know, as far as like certain wrestlers and just certain attitude, the women's revolution, you know, the fans have been really behind as well, too, as far as pushing that.
Changing the Mae Young Battle Royale, taking her name off of that.
Perfect example. Right, exactly. So, you know, the fans have definitely, and I think there's maybe some onus on us. We can sit there and chant $9.99. We can sit there and chant yes. Why don't we start chanting health and benefits?
Right.
Health and benefits. You know, why don't we start chanting that?
Yeah.
And that's where I hope this sort of sparks from a John Oliver's perspective, is that he sparks it, you know, at WrestleMania. We start doing that chant, or start, you know what? Start doing that chant, start doing that tweet. Get that out there. Get out there.
Right.
Get that out there, you know. Health and benefits.
Right.
Health and benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Get that out there.
Get it out there.
Tweet,
Seriously.
tweet.
Yeah, tweet it out. I mean, the hashtag Give Divas a Chance, that caught on.
Right,
WrestleMania
exactly.
caught on to a degree, and then they ran with that. I mean, you know, nobody's going to boycott any of this. We're going to keep paying for the network. We're going to keep watching the pay-per-views. So this is the only thing that we can do to make our voices heard.
Right, and if we did actually boycott those things, that would actually hurt the wrestlers, because I have heard that wrestlers do actually get paid pretty well, but then when you think about the travel and the benefits and all that, I wonder if it actually equals out, and of course the wear and tear on their bodies, as John Oliver discussed. But yeah, nonetheless, why not? Get health and benefits, hashtag that, get that tweeting, get that, I don't know, get that Facebook in, get that Instagram in, get that MySpace in, get the chant going. Why not? Like, we can chant for Kofi Mania, which is cool. But you know what? Let's get the health and benefits chant going as well, too.
Right? Tell other people. Not everybody saw this segment. Not everybody is aware of this. Just make people aware, you know?
Right. Yeah. Just even the segment alone, I think it was good. It was a good piece of education. If someone was like, "Hey, tell me about wrestling," I think it'd be a good thing to sort of tell them, you know, hey, for the past 20 or 30 years, kind of summarized up where we're at and where we're hopefully going. That might be a good segment to watch. But
you know, Jim Cornette said that it was the best coverage, the best mainstream coverage of wrestling he's ever seen.
I think I did hear that. Yeah, which is, hey, coming from Jim Cornette, that means something. So, but yeah, no, it was a great segment. Check it out, John Oliver, last week tonight.
Check
HBO.
it out. It's right there on YouTube.
YouTube, yeah. Yeah, and speaking of, actually, one thing you brought up, Josh, was interesting, was the women's evolution, something the fans got started. And you had mentioned that, you know, there's no really pay-per-view as far as scheduled for a follow-up.
Yeah, and Stephanie McMahon, I guess, was asked about it in an interview, and she just dodged the question. I mean, we're aware that ticket sales weren't so great, but I really blame that on the poor promotion more than anything, because if you watch the show, it's an amazing show.
Yeah, no, it's a good show, top to bottom, but you have to also remember it is still a revolution, and it's got a long ways to go, and I think our support is there. I think everyone's support is there too, but you have to remember that you know, women wrestlers have not had as many opportunities.
Yeah.
So this is the first big opportunity. They just need to capitalize it and keep giving those opportunities, like we're seeing at WrestleMania.
Momentum.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then having the main event of WrestleMania is perfect for that.
Sure.
But again, this is a main event that took a whole year to build up. It needs to get to the point where women matches are, well, always, no, I shouldn't say always main eventing, because it should be based on the card that night.
Yeah, of course.
You know, what's going to be the more talented, what's going to be the more pivotal match, those types of things, that should leave the main event.
Right.
I think that the main event we got this Sunday is just that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you don't necessarily need to look at it as a women's match or a men's match or whatever. It's just a good wrestling match because they've reached that point where there's no differentiation. Back in the Attitude Era, you say, oh, it's a Divas match. I better go get my beer during this period. But now, totally different situation.
Yeah, and this is getting back to, I know the fans, they've helped out quite a bit as far as getting the women over and the Divas back in the day. But at the end of the day, I think it's the women wrestlers and the wrestlers in general that have made this happen. And it's just our job to keep this revolution moving.
You betcha. So, yeah, let's hope that they do schedule something. I mean, it's obvious they haven't turned their back on women's wrestling, but let's keep the pay-per-view moving, But yeah, no. See, of course, speaking of pay-per-views, WrestleMania is coming up here. Josh, and this is actually another thing we got from the Hotbox. What are some of your favorite WrestleMania moments? Favorite WrestleMania moments? That is a tough question, but I picked my top 3. The first one, WrestleMania 25, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels.
All right. Yeah, the career versus streak.
Oh, man. Like, those two matches, the 25 and 26?
Yeah.
Some of the best. Like, if you're going to show somebody wrestling and you're going to try and convert them maybe or get them into it, that's definitely one of the matches you show them.
Yeah, no, 25, I'm definitely right there with you at 25 because there's a little more mysticism. You weren't exactly sure what they were going to do, but you had kind of a good idea. But yeah, WrestleMania 26, it was a little bit shorter of a match, but still it was good. It was just that you kind of knew what direction they were going to go at that point, right?
It was good. At least they didn't call it a once-in-a-lifetime thing again,
Yeah, right.
But no, that's a fantastic match. Like, even just starting with the entrances, it's wonderful. It's really amazing. Shawn Michaels literally coming down from the heavens, Undertaker coming back up from the depths. The match itself is just amazing. And I didn't get to see it live at the time as it happened, of course, but I imagine that if I was watching it, I might have actually thought, oh my God, he's going to break the streak. Like, you can watch other matches maybe, at WrestleMania with Taker, and you're just like, yeah, I don't really get the feeling that, but if you're watching this match, you really get the feeling that he could take the streak. But Michaels really could have won it all. I love that kind of, after they've had a really long battle, you get those desperation moves. Right. It's really intense stuff.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of that with and actually one of my favorite WrestleMania moments was the Hell in a Cell with Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker. When Shawn Michaels he was a special guest referee, but you would have thought it was a triple threat. As much involvement as he had in that. But yeah, with all the false finishes and with the story it really told. Because essentially Triple H should have taken the streak that night, but because Shawn Michaels stopped him from using a sledgehammer, which, hey, it's a Hell in a Cell match.
Right.
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But ultimately Triple H would have won that match if it wasn't for him. But no, I think the nostalgia with that, it was a bit of a slow-moving match starting off. But no, ultimately it delivered, had a great finish, and had that nostalgia moment as they walked out. But speaking of nostalgia, I'm Josh, I have to assume this is on your list. It's on everyone's list. WrestleMania 30.
Oh, you betcha,
Daniel
Josh.
Bryan.
Oh, you betcha. I am such a mark. I marked out for Daniel Bryan. I was right there with him, I could have been in that ring on that one Raw where they occupied Raw.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I was just, especially after Taker lost to Lesnar, we needed that win, and it was just such it was a really extraordinary moment.
Yeah, it was definitely, I think it would have been, I was actually there when it was at New Orleans and at the Superdome.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was one of those where you could just cut the tension with a knife the moment Undertaker lost. People were shocked. Like, here's the thing. You see those videos where they show the guy with the bug eyes when Undertaker lost.
Yeah.
That's how everyone was.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, they just found some guy that looked weird. I'm like, no.
It was
60, 70, 80,000 people were
Silence.
like that. It was just nuts. It was like, oh my gosh. But yes, suffice to say, once Daniel Bryan won, which was expected, if he hadn't, I think the riot would have broken out. I really think a riot would have broken out.
It would have been madness, yeah. And can we give it up for the Divas match that followed immediately afterwards?
Here I'm actually embarrassed. I know AJ Lee was in that match, and I don't remember who her opponent was, but I do remember like how. Can you imagine how they had to wrestle after that?
Yeah.
And I remember hearing people say Undertaker during the match, and I felt so bad. And to this day, it's a match I would have to Google because I remember AJ Lee was in it, and that was about it.
Well, that's horrible. Literally, everybody's, even if you're staring right at the screen, you're still thinking about that match you just watched before.
Yep. And as soon as Daniel Bryan came out, the yes. But no. So yeah, definitely WrestleMania was saved it.
So good. Classic.
Josh, what else? What other favorites you got?
My third and final entry is my favorite wrestling match of all time. This is the match that I saw. I had been watching wrestling here and there as best as I could, not having cable or access to pay-per-view. I did as best as I could. But let's say I was dating wrestling, right? When I saw this match, I fell in love with wrestling, and I fell hard. And I saw just what wrestling could be, what you could do. My favorite match of all time is WrestleMania 17, Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys versus the Hardys.
Oh,
purists might say, oh, it's not a classic traditional one-on-one match, yada, yada, yada. I don't care. I absolutely love it. If you watch this match, it has this certain, there's like a Rube Goldberg mechanism hidden away in the chaos. And they're putting the pieces together slowly. And there's just this certain symmetry to everything. You get a one run-in for each of the three teams, and it works. You get Crash coming in, you get Lita coming in, you get Rhino coming in. They're causing chaos. Then you get like ladders stacked up. This ladder knocks over this guy, and then this causes this to happen. And then, oh my God, Edge spears Jeff Hardy right off of a ladder. You watch that and tell me that's not one of the most amazing things you've ever seen. I couldn't imagine anything more perfect than that. And then, of course, you get Rhino pushing, I think it's Bubba and Matt on the ladder off into the four tables that were stacked up there like...
That was an explosion.
Yeah, and the beauty is that was stacked up there way earlier in the match.
Right.
Again, like I'm talking about Rube Goldberg, they're setting up all these things, or there's like a table in the corner, and eventually that gets used, and it's that kind of satisfying situation where you see them building it slowly up and all while wrestling, of course, they're doing this. So they're wrestling and they're setting up for an enormous payoff, and then when Edge finally grabs the belt, you're just like, oh my God! I can't stress that enough. If you haven't seen this match, I don't care if you don't like wrestling. Why the hell are you listening to our show? But you should watch this match. Wrestlemania 17. I mean, hell, watch the whole damn Wrestlemania. It's the best.
No, yeah.
But this match...
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that it's one of those, and speaking of, it would be like a Steamboat Savage match, right?
Yeah.
Where people are
Kinda.
like, it's one of those like, oh yeah, that was a good match. Like, and you're right. I think it definitely should get even more exposure. Although I do think it does pop up quite a bit in highlights with WWE. But no, you're right. It's actually one that I don't think of right off the bat, but it was certainly one of those awesome, iconic matches of all time. But my third and final favorite match, actually my favorite match of all time, would be Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 11, the Iron Man match when Rowdy Piper was the special guest referee.
Oh, there you go.
And I was young enough, I didn't know too much about wrestling at that point, and we actually hadn't seen an Iron Man match, I don't think, in WWE at that point, or at least in the past decade, at least on televised TV that I can remember. And so I kept thinking when I was watching that, and again, I was listening to it. I back then, when I was so young, I put a fork in the back of a TV, and I could go to Channel 99, see static, but I could hear the actual pay-per-view. Right. I expected it to be like 7-7. Like Bret Hart had 7 wins, Shawn Michaels had 7 wins, there were pinfalls, submissions, countouts, DQs, and nothing happened the first 60 minutes. And then they had as far as it was considered, like, Bret Hart was walking off, thought it was a draw, he retained the title, and they had a sudden death after that where Shawn Michaels won. But I just remember thinking the entire time, and I'm a young kid, I'm thinking the entire time, I go outside and play, after like 10 minutes, I need a break. These guys, there's no water break.
Yeah.
And they went, what, 67 minutes or something like that? I think the sudden death was 7 minutes longer. I forget how long it was actually. It might have been shorter than that, but it was over an hour that we know.
Yeah.
And to as far as make it interesting, and that's why they don't do a whole lot of Iron Man matches, because you have to wrestle for 60 plus minutes and actually make it interesting.
That's the key. Yeah.
But they were able to do it, and I think people maybe had. And I didn't have an idea. I actually thought Bret Hart might retain. I think people had a good idea Shawn Michaels would win at WrestleMania, but again, it was WrestleMania. It was still becoming a spectacle at that point. It's not the spectacle it is today, but it was kind of evolving into that. So people sort of thought of it as like another pay-per-view, and I wonder if kind of people were going both ways at that point. But I know for fact I was kind of a little shocked when there were no pinfalls or decisions or submissions whatsoever in that first hour. But it was definitely one of those where I was able to go back and actually watch it and say that the wrestling was there. But that was definitely, it's my favorite match of all time.
Yeah, good pick. Nice.
Speaking of, WrestleMania 35 is coming up, right?
Oh,
tomorrow is today.
Later today.
WrestleMania is later today. Yeah, it's gonna be a loaded WrestleMania, probably about 8 hours long. Let's just get right to it. As far as the women's battle royal, if anyone besides Asuka wins this, I'm gonna be a little pissed. Asuka sort of got the shaft here.
Yeah.
And really, if I could rebook the past year, I like the WrestleMania main event. I would have made it a fatal 4-way elimination match. I probably couldn't get that past the writers, but I would make it a fatal 4-way match to say the least, include Asuka. And as long as she was still a SmackDown's champion and was at a 1-loss record to Charlotte Flair, it would have worked.
Oh yeah.
And I think it would have worked. So I think that's the way I would have rebooked that. But I do think it was 2 weeks away from WrestleMania. She loses the SmackDown Women's title, which I think was pretty invisible already.
Yeah, really.
I mean, Asuka delivered, but it was one of those things where I think creative, they just straight up weren't delivering. They weren't putting that belt over. It was like the Raw Women's Championship only meant something, but screw the SmackDown Championship. But anyway, my pick is Asuka. I would hope that she does win, but again, they tend to do with these battle royals sort of someone out of nowhere that you're not expecting, unless it's Big Show and the second Andre the Giant battle royal.
You know, if it's not Asuka, I would be okay with Sarah Logan, maybe. It might be her time to get a push.
I could see that.
You know, break away from the Riot Squad a bit and do her own thing. Sure.
I could see that. I'd rather. I'm still going to be biased on this because I want to see Asuka get something after the the past 2 weeks, or actually, I'm sorry, the past kind of year. Actually, she finally got the SmackDown Championship. But I mean, she put over Carmella, she put over Mandy Rose. Not to say they weren't necessarily deserving, but I just felt like Asuka, there was a lot more opportunity there to keep that undefeated streak going, or just to keep it at a 1-loss record to Charlotte Flair.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I was not very happy about Asuka's streak being broken. And then, I would have been okay with it, like you said, with having just a 1 loss to Charlotte.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a deserved thing. But
no, and speaking of, who do you think's going to win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal?
You know, that one's a little tougher to discern, but I'd like to see maybe Braun Strowman start getting a pushback. You know, like if he can win that and then actually keep his momentum up and not put him into a position where, he basically just gets buried. Like, what was it? It was supposed to be him versus Lesnar, right? And then Baron Corbin snuck up behind him and hit him in the head with the belt.
Right.
And
we haven't seen much from him since.
Yeah. And I mean, like, at the time I said, well, they're not really trying to bury him because I think they had to give him 5 F5s to put him down. So I could say, well, they had to get him out of this match. I get that. But they at least, made him look tough where, it took so much to get Braun Strowman down.
Sure.
But then, of course, they didn't do anything with it. So maybe this is their chance to kind of bring things back. That would be a nice feather in his belt that's going to mean a lot more than that green belt they got. The Battle Royale it's hit or miss in terms of helping people. It can, it cannot, but I'd like to think maybe he'll win it, and it will actually help him. And my second place pick would be Colin Jost.
I'm actually with you. I actually think Colin Jost. Well, here's the thing, though. From what I've seen, how it's advertised, Colin Jost and Michael Che are advertised as going in together. So I don't know if they're co-entrants, but I could see them for marketing, purposes that they actually win.
Oh, that'd be terrible, though.
The fans. I think the fans have something to say about that. But no, I'd like to see Braun Strowman win. Wouldn't mind seeing Titus O'Neil win as well too. But
there you go. Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, they tend to. I don't know. Overall, I feel like the Battle Royal winners, it's overall help them. It certainly shouldn't hurt someone's career.
Yeah.
But then you look at someone like Mojo Rawley. He won, 2 WrestleManias ago, and maybe he becomes a 2-time winner. That's maybe something they do is bring him back, and
there you go.
He wins a 2-time, and why not? He's got Gronkowski just retired.
Mm-hmm.
Gronk could come back as like a manager for Mojo Rawley on Monday Night Raw or something.
There you go.
So we'll see. But and I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with Titus O'Neil. Although I wouldn't mind seeing Braun Strowman, but I have a sneaky suspicion we could see Michael Che and Colin Jost the winners.
That would be crazy. You think Titus is going to trip on the way to the ring? Is that going to be his thing now?
Well, I don't know. So with the Battle Royal, though, they all enter at the same time. So there's not as much opportunity to get that. But why not? So
poor guy.
Yeah, but hey, he sold it though, right?
Yeah. Oh, he sure did, and Vince loved it, so that's good.
Hey, he cut me at the Cheesecake Factory. Yeah, this is
Did he grab your arm and hold you back?
No, this is a true story. So this is a couple WrestleMania 31. I went there with my lovable wife, and we were in line for Cheesecake Factory, and this guy kind of just moved right in front. I was like, I just turned to my wife, and I was like, whoa, this guy just cut right in front of me.
Yeah.
I did notice he's a big guy, but I didn't think anything of it. But then I started seeing he was talking to people in line. I'm like, oh, okay. So he actually knows some people in line. And then at one point he turned around. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Titus O'Neil.
Wow.
Like, he turned around. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Titus O'Neil. No, so it was pretty cool. But at first I thought he'd cut me, but turned out it was a misunderstanding. We're cool now. We both enjoyed our long search through food for the menu at the Cheesecake Factory. So everything's all good. Everything's good. It's all good. Anyway, let's get to some of the other matches here as well, too. In terms of like the main event stuff, I got to believe it. I really think that Brock Lesnar is going to beat Seth Rollins.
Now, here's the thing. I was thinking about this because it's kind of gotten to that point like it did with Undertaker's streak for a while there, where you just kind of take it as a thing. You say, well, it'll be an enjoyable match, but Taker's going to win. And I think we've reached that point where it's going to be an enjoyable match, but Lesnar's going to win. So now I'm wondering if WWE doesn't want to give the win to Rollins. But here's the thing. Me personally, I'd be pissed off if that happened. Because like I previously said, and I think a couple episodes, they built Brock up to this point where no one on the roster can do it. And it would take some kind of dark horse coming out of nowhere to do it. And it's just Rollins. Here you go. And don't get me wrong, I like Rollins, but I just don't think that would be a satisfying conclusion. But now I'm starting to wonder if maybe they're going to do it. Because now there's a rumor Brock's going back to UFC NXT, but I mean, obviously, honestly, like
that
I feel
rumor comes up every time he wrestles.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the daily Lesnar rumor, right? So,
Right.
but I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if maybe WWE is also cognizant of that it's kind of becoming an established thing. It's like, yeah, unless you're Goldberg, Lesnar's going to win. So I don't know. Maybe they'll change it up and swerve us. I mean, I guess that would be a swerve at this point, right? I mean,
that would be interesting. I mean, here's the thing: we are getting a little complacent in some ways. I think though the masses would like to think that Seth Rollins is going to win. I keep thinking Lesnar's going to go over, but I'll tell you this: if Kofi Kingston wins, which I think he will against Daniel Bryan, and then we see Seth Rollins win against Brock Lesnar, that means Charlotte Flair is going over that night.
Because you can't give him too much.
Well, I think that, you got your swerves. And I've actually kind of thought, why not have Charlotte Flair win, and then that can spill over? Because if Ronda Rousey's going to be taking some time off, supposedly after WrestleMania, why not have a Charlotte Flair feud with a unified championship go into SummerSlam? The other thing, too, is, Ronda Rousey has said that she wants to start a family, which that to me is a pretty big indicator if she wants to take some time off.
Yeah.
But I could also see something like Ronda Rousey winning, unifying the titles, and just throwing it down the ring and be like, I'm done with this. My contract's up.
Oh.
You have a unified women's championship, and then you have this WWE NXT wide tournament to determine who the new undisputed Universal Women's Champion is.
Huh. That would be interesting. I can see that happening, especially with the way she sent out these videos exposing the business in such a way that, they've established that she doesn't have a whole lot of respect for it in kayfabe, that she doesn't respect the business,
Yeah.
So that would work out well, I think, yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, I think that, and I kind of touched on it earlier, I think Kofi Kingston's going to go over Daniel Bryan. Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I can't see it happening any other way.
I'll tell you the big question, though, is I think a lot of us assume Kofi's going to win. The bigger question is, when is he going to drop the title? Is he going to hold it till SummerSlam? I'd like to see a New Day title of sorts. Like
That'd be cool.
As far as the purple and blue title. Custom.
I'm a big fan of the custom titles.
Yeah.
The only downside is usually when you have a custom title, that usually means the person's going to hold on to it for a little while.
But anyway, I'd like to think Kofi Kingston's going to win. We'll definitely see what happens with that. AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. I'd like to think AJ Styles is going to go over.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Or it could be an RKO out of nowhere.
Maybe.
Well, the other thing too, I was wondering about was I know Randy Orton had signed a 10-year contract back, I think, in 2009 of sorts. So that would mean in 2019 his contract's up, going to expire at some point. I don't know if he's re-signed or whatnot. Well, I think what he's trying to do is get, he's probably his agent. Honestly, is probably getting rumors started with like AEW to jack up his price, and why not?
Smart.
I mean, get your money.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see with how they're going to go with that. Because that could be something enticing, like if they tell Randy Orton, like, hey, you want to re-sign? We'll give you the victory over WrestleMania.
Oh, there you go.
Why not? Yeah, no, I guess we also got the Triple H Batista match. My assumption is it's going to be Triple H that's going to win.
Probably. I don't really see, because I don't see Batista sticking around afterwards for long. That's the only reason.
Well, and I think that Batista's doing pretty well with the Hollywood thing. He had mentioned in an interview at some point that he wanted to close out his WrestleMania career on a good note, and why not putting someone else over at WrestleMania, like a Triple H, on the grandest stage of them all. So I think it'll be entertaining. It'll be interesting to see, because they're going to have the Shane McMahon-Miz match as well, too.
Yeah.
And so you got basically a no-holds-barred match, which is almost just like a Falls Count Anywhere match, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think we kind of sort of see Triple H winning. While we're talking about it, Shane, Miz, I would assume Miz is going to go over, but I could see some type of nostalgia trick like the Mean Street Posse coming out and helping Shane win.
Oh, wow.
I could see something like that. I could see all, Shane having all his friends, come out and help him out. And honestly, if we see that, maybe Miz brings his people out, like the B Team and Alex Riley or something. Of course, people would be like, I don't know if they remember Alex Riley, to be honest. I would. And I'd like to think that there's a lot of seasoned fans of WrestleMania as well with the masses. And so, hey, why not have an Alex Riley, like sort of Miz's friends, come out and help out?
You know what I want in a perfect world? This ain't going to happen. But in a perfect world, I would love for Damian Sandow to run out as the stunt double and help him out. Not going to happen, but...
You know what? And I can't believe I didn't even think that. I said Alex Riley, but I think that Damian Sandow made a bigger impact than Alex Riley.
He was so good.
And you're right. I think that
good.
I was always shocked when they released. I couldn't believe they released him.
Big mistake.
But no, that would be cool.
That'd be fun.
That
right?
would be awesome. Yeah. What else we got? We got the Intercontinental Championship match. Bobby Lashley versus the Demon King. I picture actually Bobby Lashley twisting his leg on the way to the ring. Leo Rush will jump in and replace him. So it's Leo Rush versus Demon King. I picture then Leo Rush beating Demon King via submission.
Wow.
So I picture Leo Rush beating Demon King via submission at that point.
Woo! The debut of Demon King at
Did you see that coming at all?
WrestleMania. No, I didn't see any of those things happening.
No. I think unless like some type of huge swerve happens, I would assume that we're going to see the Demon King continue the undefeated streak at WrestleMania and become a 2-time Intercontinental Champion. Demon King. Well, you kind of knew it was going to come 6 months out because when they were advertising tickets, they showed Demon King on the poster. So, but also it's WrestleMania, so it's a good assumption that we're going to see Demon King, although we didn't see it last year, which is all right.
Now there's just the one complaint. I've told you about this before. My one complaint about Demon King is his moveset is identical to Finn Balor's.
Right.
If he had just one finishing move that was just a little different or something a little different or more intense, I would say, okay, really cool. Because otherwise, I mean, he just looks different. That's great.
Right. That's a good point. And it's you almost see like, and he starts the match off kind of like lurking around the ring and all that. That's all fun. But when it gets to like near the end of the match, when he's worn out, he's entered the 13th round, so to speak. That's when he's like, it looks like Finn Balor just with makeup. And that's where I wished he would be like huffing and puffing and trying to regain his strength as the Demon King. But you're right. You sort of see his Finn Balor with paint that's sort of watered off at that point.
But and I mean, I feel a little silly criticizing anything about Finn Balor's wrestling.
Oh, well, we're nitpicking. I think we all understand we're having fun with it. But
yeah, we love you, Finn. Just saying is all. Maybe try something. Maybe I'll tweet him and suggest that.
Hey, why not? Why not? The other match, of course, we got the Women's Tag Team Championship. I would assume that we'd see Sasha Banks and Bayley retain. Although, I don't know. I mean, Beth Phoenix, I was actually surprised when I heard she was coming back to the ring. And I thought she had some actually neck injuries, is what I remember, which is ironic because her husband, Adam Copeland, Edge, had neck injuries as well, too.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought she'd actually had neck injuries, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So
interesting.
She's obviously, she was cleared. Like, you wouldn't be in a WWE ring if you're not cleared. So,
yeah.
My assumption is that we would actually see Sasha Banks and Bayley retain. Although I could see it going any way there, put people over.
I mean, it's either going to be Sasha Banks and Bayley, if you ask me, the Boston Hug, or possibly the Iconics. Maybe it's their time to step up. I don't know. I think maybe. What do you think? Is that too pie in the sky?
No, they put a spotlight on them. I could see that.
Maybe not as likely, though. Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, they do put a spotlight on them, but then typically if they want to do a swerve, they might throw someone else out there, like maybe a Nia Jax and Tamina, who hasn't actually got as much of a spotlight as the others. But I think there's a lot of backlash. I think the fans don't like Nia Jax because she's wrestled pretty sloppily.
I don't like either of them very much. And I especially don't like Nia Jax because of her sloppiness. And she seems to tweet about it in a joking manner as if it's not a big deal on some occasions. She'll make some remark. Not cool.
Well, and I'm thinking that she's probably being produced that way. WB, they do typically have control over their handles and whatnot, so like Twitter handles and social media handles. So I would say at that point you'd want to spin it just because, hey, you got a heel anyway. Why not spin it even more? Make something worth it off this. But
yeah, especially when she bashed Becky in the face.
That's right.
That was something they used, hang her hat on as a heel kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, especially they kind of messed up things. Well, it actually messed up things, but then I wonder if we'd had that match at that point. Would we have the WrestleMania event now, or would people have gotten that out of their system? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's interesting. I mean, you could argue that image itself of Becky standing there defiantly with the bloody face was. I think you gotta really remember the power of just a single image.
Right.
That might have done it.
That's right. Hey, that's and it was like, because I don't think she was called the Man at that point, was she? Or was she the man?
I think she was just barely starting to be the man.
Okay.
You could almost say this was, when she really solidified, it crystallized, I'd say, with that,
Yeah. No, and speaking of, I have to assume Becky Lynch is going to probably win the triple threat match. Yeah. But again, I said, hey, listen, if the other faces go over, I could see Charlotte Flair pulling it off. And then there's that sort of pie in the sky Ronda Rousey. She throws down the unified title on Monday Night Raw the next night.
That's the thing. If Becky were to not win this match, I don't think it'd hurt her at all.
No, in fact, a lot of people actually, and Triple H made this argument with John Cena, was that John Cena was stronger as a runner, as a chaser for the title, than actually holding the championship. So maybe it does even make it that much more sweeter that Charlotte Flair pulls it off.
Right.
And why not? Like, she's going to surpass. And if they're serious about this women's revolution, Charlotte Flair will eventually be a 22-time women's champion.
Sure.
And that'll be the greatest world champion of all time.
I don't see why not.
Because, Flair is officially the 16-time, but of course, like with this AWA and some other federations, he's actually more of like a 21-time world champion. So, they could do that with Charlotte Flair, just make her the end-all, be-all 25-time world champion at some point.
There you go. Could be. I mean, I still want Becky to win, but I'd be okay with it because she could keep going.
That's exactly right. Yeah. A couple other matches. Well, one, I should say, as far as a quote-unquote match, I got to assume we're going to see a John Cena-Undertaker match, right?
There is talk. I didn't click the link, but there's talk that Undertaker has landed in New York. So I don't know what's like. It's interesting because you'd at least hear something about it. Even that 3-minute match Cena had with Undertaker at the last one, you still heard something about it.
Well, you knew it was
You
going to
know?
happen because he kept coming out.
Yeah.
You knew they weren't going to do something like that and then not have it happen.
But with this, we got nothing. There's been no talk, which is really interesting because I'm wondering what's going on here. It's probably going to be Cena Taker 2. Sounds great.
That's my
you know?
assumption. I mean, here's the thing: Undertaker has to show up at some point.
Yeah.
Right. It's there's no reason for him not to. He looked great at last WrestleMania. Undertaker is WrestleMania.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And he is the guy that has elevated WrestleMania. The streak was something, and even long after that, people still talk about The Undertaker. He's an icon to me, and he's my favorite wrestler of all time, so I'm biased as hell about it. But I have to believe, and I mentioned this in our last podcast, with that squash match with John Cena, which, hate him or love him, he's going down as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. With a squash match at WrestleMania 34, you have to assume they're going to have a follow-up after that.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting because John Cena has not come out to cut a promo on that at all. There's been talk of bringing Lars Sullivan.
Oh.
And at some point, maybe we see a Lars Sullivan, Undertaker, John Cena type match. I don't know. But there's even talks of Bray Wyatt, who he's not scheduled for any access, but he's been haunting, so to speak, around WrestleMania. They may also just be saving him for Monday Night Raw as well, too.
Maybe.
But I have to believe Undertaker's going to be on the card. I have to believe it's Undertaker Cena, too. And, I mean, again, why not? But it's funny, they wouldn't advertise. If they're going to have a match like that, why would they not advertise it? So, at the very least, I think we get a promo from Undertaker of some sort. But even then, fans are going to want some action.
They want something, yeah. It's really interesting because you think they'd capitalize on that for promotion's sake.
Yep. So, you're absolutely right. The other match to kind of throw out there, too, and there's a lot of other great matches as well, too. But the one that I really wanted to call out was, of course, the farewell match with Kurt Angle and Baron Corbin, which a lot of fans have been sort of like, what's going on here?
It's puzzling, isn't it?
Well, and this is where they can kind of do a swerve or something. Like maybe Baron Corbin comes out and the fans hate it, but then maybe Undertaker comes out instead and chokeslams Baron Corbin. Oh. So then we have Undertaker versus Kurt Angle, or we see John Cena maybe do that as well too. And so we see Baron Corbin come out, John Cena's an the attitude adjustment, and then John Cena says, "Hey, I started in the WB. You were my first match. I'm going to be your last match out of here."
That'd be cool.
So we could see Cena Angle as well too.
And
then maybe we see like Baron Corbin comes out later in the match, later in the night, and it's like, hey, this is bull crap.
Maybe.
That was my WrestleMania moment. Dong.
Oh, yeah.
Dong. Undertaker comes out with another squash match on Baron Corbin.
There you go. That'd be fun. Because no matter what happens, I hope it's not just a straight Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin, because for this, like we were talking about before the podcast, we were saying for this to be the farewell match, this storyline thing that's been going on for maybe 3 months, I think, for that to be the end of Kurt Angle's career is to me, that's absurd.
Yeah, you're right. And that's why it makes more sense to do something like a John Cena, where John Cena's debut is against Kurt Angle. And also, like, if Kurt Angle's going out, his match should be against someone that is in the up. Yeah. And again, Baron Corbin, in my opinion, is a good worker.
Sure.
I like what he's done. But you need someone that upper echelon.
He's just not that guy.
Well, he's not there yet. Yeah. I mean, he hasn't been in the industry that long, just to be honest. So, but I'd like to see that. Maybe that's what we'll see at the WrestleMania. But no, a lot of other good matches too. WrestleMania, of course, as always, is going to be an 8-hour epic. I'm looking forward to watching it as usual, and so should you too. And I think that we'll get carried away at times, sitting there complaining about WWE, complaining about WrestleMania. Really just try to enjoy it. Like, this is what we've all come to wrestling because of WWE in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. A lot of us didn't have the independent circuit in our backyard, so we had to rely on pay-per-views like in your house, or like even the old school stuff and when they traveled around and whatnot.
Right. WWE brought wrestling to
us. Right. And so I think that we have to, as far as least respect that, which I think we do at some level.
Sure.
But also remember, WrestleMania is the culmination of all these efforts, whether you're on the independent circuit, whether you're a technician, whether you're a ring announcer, whether you're a special guest referee, whether you're the opening singer of the national anthem. No. Whether you're doing any of that, whether you're a fan or whether you're just sitting on your ass at home, you're all part of it. You're all part of WrestleMania. We're all part of WrestleMania. So enjoy it. This WrestleMania is the Super Bowl, the Oscars, everything all rolled into one. Enjoy it.
It's once a year. Just go all in. I don't care if it's 8 hours. I don't care if it's 10 hours. It's just once a year. You got to do it, man.
Right. And hey, call in sick tomorrow if you have to. Call in sick, for at the WrestleMania Monday, and why not, right? So, Josh, anything else you want to add?
No, I think we're good. I just want to say thank you again to the 31 subscribers that we have. We're still pushing to get more, so if you know anybody, let them know. Subscribe, leave us a like, leave us a comment. Maybe send us an email at joshandjoshtalkwrestling@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter at Josh and Josh TW. You can even find us on Instagram at Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling.
Yeah.
Just look for us. Reach out to us. Let's get involved with the community a bit more. We've had some nice people who've been sending us messages to the Hotbox, but we could always use more.
Yeah. No, we're getting a lot of spam on our MySpace page, which is partially we're to blame on that. Keep those emails coming, keep those tweets coming, and again, enjoy WrestleMania, and much love to all you.
Have fun, everybody. Have a good night.
Laters.